All right, so let me introduce myself. My name is Patrice Guy. I am the technical director for North Star Drone Shows, and my partner, Jeff Clarmo, who is the CEO of North Star Drone Shows. We are based in Toronto, Ontario, and we have been active in the drone business, well, here in Canada for a little bit less than a year, but actually I started my first drone show company in the Philippines 4 years ago. I used to be living in Asia. So North Star Drone Show is a division of North Star Fireworks, which was founded 30 years ago. As I said, we are located in Ontario, Canada. Our drone operations here in Canada started in January 2020, so a little bit less than a year ago. North Star is a partnership between Jeff Clarmo and myself. We started back in January with 105 drones, and we now own over 200 drones, and we plan to expand to 500 drones within the next 2 years. So this is Jeff, my partner. Jeff started 30 years ago in the fireworks industry by fireworks manufacturing, actually, and then he migrated into show production. In our company, Jeff manages all sales and all logistics. I'm more of the technical background guy. Jeff is more of the face of the company. And Jeff has produced in his career over 3,000 fireworks shows. So this is me. I'm the technical director, as I said earlier. I've been performing fireworks shows for 33 years. I'm the former vice chairman of the Canadian Pyrotechnic Council. I've done work with Ocean Park in Hong Kong, with the Shanghai Special Olympics, the Disney Corporation in multiple parks, the Asian Games in Doha, the Southeast Asian Games in Manila. I've been featured in the National Geographic program inside Hong Kong's Big Bang. And I founded Platinum Drone Shows in the Philippines in 2018. Last 2 summers ago, actually, in the summer of 2019, Jeff and I got in contact towards a mutual friend. And at that time, I was thinking of maybe going back to Canada. My daughter was getting older and I wanted to raise her in Canada. And Jeff wanted to get started in the drone business. So we got introduced through a mutual friend, and we reached an agreement, and I flew back to Canada last year and we started North Star Drone Shows. So as I said earlier, both Jeff and I have been in the fireworks business for over 30 years. So why did we switch to drone shows? Well, I started noticing 5 or 6 years ago that more and more there was a public resistance towards fireworks. I mean, I would hear that certain countries were either outright banning fireworks or making it very difficult to hold fireworks shows. Belgium is a good example of that. Like this year in India for Diwali, fireworks were banned. Here in Canada, Vancouver just banned fireworks last week, and it seems that more and more countries are looking at it. I just got a news report from the Philippines a couple of days ago that the president of the Philippines has announced that he's considering a ban of fireworks starting next year. So there seems to be a little bit of resistance towards fireworks. Also, when you're selling to producers or publicity agencies, where they're always looking for the new thing, right? The next big thing that nobody has seen, and drones really tick that box nicely. Drones allow you to have sponsor recognition, which you couldn't have in a fireworks show. With a drone, you could literally fly a sponsor's logo and make it, 100 meters wide in the sky, and get amazing pictures out of it. Being fireworks guys, of course, we don't forget our roots, and drones are a great addition to fireworks shows. For those that were interested in American politics, if you've seen Joe Biden's show that he performed when we announced that he won the American presidential election, was a great way to mix drones and fireworks. And also adding drones to our offering opened the door to new markets. Now we can talk to publicity agency, we can be part of marketing campaigns, we can raise brand awareness, which I believe are done more easily with drones than with fireworks. So once we decided to go into drones, why did we choose drone show software? Well, to be quite frank, when I started almost 5 years ago, there was no other alternative. Drone show software was the only available platform for a company like ours. All the other companies that were making drone shows had in-house software development that they wouldn't sell. Um, there was also at the time some Chinese solutions that are still around. Um, what we didn't like with the Chinese solutions is that you didn't get total control on what you were doing. You couldn't design the shows yourself. You needed to go back to the vendor and have them design your show. And once you got the show, you couldn't do last minute adjustments. For instance, flying higher, flying lower, tilting the show a bit to the right, tilting the show a bit to the left. That was all impossible to do. All you could do with the Chinese system was get the show file and fly it exactly as programmed. If you wanted to do a simple change, such as I would like to fly it 10 meters higher, well, it had to go back to China and be reprogrammed again. So for us, that was a no. We didn't want to have all those barriers to our creativity. Another thing that we like with drone show software is that drone show software has a strong background in the makers community. It was really something that started in the open source development platform, and the roots are still there. You can easily customize drone show software for different scenarios. For instance, in our case, we have multiple ways of deploying our ground control stations and deploying our Wi-Fi network. So depending on if we're going to fly right above us, we're going to use one kind of Wi-Fi setup. If we take off here and we fly 500 meters away over a lake, for instance, then we can change our Wi-Fi configuration, use directional antennas, and there's a lot of flexibility built in the system that we really enjoy. Another thing that we really like with drone show software is the double geofence. What we realized when we started talking to regulation agencies here in Canada, specifically Transport Canada, is that one of their biggest worries is a flyaway. The worst thing that can happen during a show is a drone that takes off and is not under control and flies for 20 minutes in some unknown direction. The double geofence resolves that issue. If you do have a drone that crosses the first geofence and for any reason cannot return home because propeller is broken or the GPS is defective or any reason, well, by the time it hits the second geofence, it'll just disarm and fall back down. Of course, having a drone fall down is not something that we wish, but between this option or a flyaway, I would much prefer have a drone fall down. And we install our drones on our show sites in a way that if that should happen, there is a buffer zone around our flight site where nobody is allowed to go in, and this is where the drone will fall. It hasn't happened yet, but we're comfortable that this safety is built in the system. We also like the fact that the ground control station is double redundant with the use of red button. In our case, we run it on 2 separate laptops that are network. So if for some reason our main laptop should stop working, somebody drops a water bottle on a laptop or something like that during a flight, well, red button will allow us to regain control of the show, finish the show, or land the drones, or react to whatever eventuality may arise. And easy to fine tune on site. Well, I've already talked about that, about adjusting height, adjusting orientation, and things of that nature. So that's the reason why we chose drone show software. Now, the main reason why I'm here today is to talk to you about some of the shows that we have been here and the steps that were involved. So the first major show that we performed was for a bank in Eastern Canada. They're called Desjardins Bank, and they are the largest bank in Quebec. And the whole background of this publicity campaign that they were putting together was to say thank you to kids and teenagers that had performed good actions during the COVID pandemic. So the way that they would thank them was to invite them to a secret spot and without telling them, out of nowhere, perform a drone show for them that would highlight the things that they did during this epidemic. This was filmed for television and social media, and it also included a behind-the-scene video. At the end of the development process, they focused on two youths, two different kids that they would highlight in their publicity. And we filmed over 2 nights, one night in Montreal and another night in another town called Shawinigan, which is about 200 kilometers away. And we did 3 flights in each location. So 3 times 200 drones in Montreal, 3 times 200 drone in Shawinigan. The reason why we did 3 flights is that they wanted to be absolutely certain that they could capture the show from any kind of possible angle, any kind of possible camera settings, and edit it down to a 1-minute video afterwards. And due to the COVID situation, the show was not advertised and it was not open to the general public. So the timeline to perform this was extremely short. We had our first contact with the publicity agency on September 10th, and the first day of filming was on October 11th. So we had 30 days to do everything: program the show, do the design, do 3D renderings, animations, get all the permits, everything. So on 13th of September, we had our first production meeting and we signed the contract. On the 15th of September, images and logos were sent to us by the producers, what they wanted to see in the show. And we started our design process based on those images. On the 21st of September, we had our site inspections. On the 26th of September, we submitted all the paperwork to the government to get our proper permits. And the government has just been really, really, really great in processing this. We had our permits in 4 days only. So on the 30th of September, we had all our permits in place. On October 2nd, we sent our first animations to them. Then they made their comments. Can you change this? Can you adjust that? Can you change the color of this? And so on October the 7th, we sent them the second draft. They still had a few comments. And on the October the 9th, we had the final draft, which was approved by the client. On 11th of October, we filmed in Shawinigan, and on 12th of October, we filmed in Montreal. We were supposed to film on 10th of October in Montreal first, but it was too windy that day, so we had to push back by 2 days. So let me explain a little bit of what is necessary here to get the permission to fly a drone show in Canada. So first of all, you need proof of insurance, which is probably the same all over the world. You need what is called an advanced pilot license. In Canada, there are 2 types of drone show license. You can get a basic license, which is what most hobbyists will get. If you just fly a drone for fun and take pictures around your house, then you need a basic license. If you fly drones for a living, if you are charging money for your activities, then you need an advanced pilot license. You need logbooks for your pilots, you need logbooks for your drones, you need logbooks for your batteries. You need a company operation manual that is a guide that explains how everything is done within the company, from performing the shows to data record and management to ongoing training. Every single thing that you do in your company must be written down in that manual. You need a drone maintenance manual. You need a company standard safety procedures manual. You need a company standard operating procedures manual. So all that I said up until now is quite similar to an ISO 9000 audit, pretty much. That's pretty much, those of you that are familiar with that, it's a similar process here to get a drone permit. Once you've got all that, well, for each and every show, you need to provide an operation risk assessment under the JIRUS SORA process. I won't explain it here because it's quite complicated, but you can Google JIRUS SORA and it will explain how to do it. You need a list of drones registration number. Of course, every one of your drone needs to be registered with the government. You need an operational plan. So your operational plan describes, well, where you're going to perform it, at what time, who will be there, how are you going to set your geofences? Do you have the owner of the land's permission to do this? Where are all the airports in the area? How are you going to contact those airports if you need to? And so on and so forth. So everything that is specific to a particular mission goes into the ops plan. You need to fill a special flight operation certificate application form with Transport Canada. That form needs to be accompanied with a compliance matrix, which is basically just a checklist that you've submitted this document, you submitted that document, so you need to check all the boxes. And if you're flying in controlled airspace, which was the case for us for this show, you also need a flight authorization from NAV Canada that control the civilian airspace here in Canada. So one of the way that we convey this information to the government is through the aid of images like the one that you see on your screen right now. So that is the flight site in Montreal. So if you look here, you can see that the red square in the middle is our drone takeoff and landing area. So that's basically where our drones would be on the ground prior to takeoff. Then the first circle that you see here, that is our flight area. This is where we intend to fly. We do not intend to go outside that circle. Sorry for that. The purple line that you see here, that is our soft geofence. So should a drone reach that line, it will, its mode will change to return to home location and land. The orange line that you see here, that's our hard fence. So if a drone reaches the first fence and for some reason is not able to return to land, it will eventually get to the second fence. And when it does, it will disarm and it will fall to the ground. The salmon circle here, or the pink circle that you see here, that's the extent of our buffer zone. So how do we calculate that buffer zone? Well, basically, we figured a drone flying at maximum altitude, which here in Canada is 400 feet above ground level, going at maximum speed. If we cut the motors and we disarm it at this line, where is it going to end up? So we did the ballistic calculation and it gave us a distance. And that's how we establish our buffer zone here, where nobody is allowed to enter. On this plan, we also have a bit more information. We show where our visual observers will be. In that case, we had 3 visual observers. Their task is not to look at the show, but rather turn their back to the show and look at the sky and inform me, the pilot, if they see anybody coming towards us in a plane or a helicopter or a glider or things like that, that would force me to stop the show and land the drones immediately. And the yellow box that you see here, that's where the spectators were for this performance. There was only about 8 or 9 of them because of COVID, and it was a made-for-TV production, so there wasn't a crowd. As you can see, the spectators are outside of our buffer zone. And the last blue box that you see here is the pilot. In the case of that show, that was me, so that's where I was during the performance. This is the same thing for a second show, which was in Shawinigan. In that case, we were in a football field, and you can see the same sort of general arrangement. The only noticeable difference is the positioning of the visual observers. Obviously, all this here is a forest, and there's a fence all around, so we were not expecting anybody to come here on foot. Still, we needed someone to look at the sky. And we put 2 other observers here because there was a possibility that people could come in with a car or come in on foot. So we wanted to have people here to stop them should they come during the performance. I was saying earlier that the producers sent us a series of images that they wanted us to perform during the drone show. So if you look at this slide, the image on the bottom right is what they wanted us to do. And if you look at the picture, this is how we represented that image. So this is the show for one of the youth that was involved in this publicity. And what she did during the pandemic is that she collected old toys, old furnitures, old clothes, and she would repair them, repaint them, make them look brand new, and then give them away to charity organizations. So the rocking horse that you see there, or actually, it's a rocking moose for those of you that live in the Northern Hemisphere, is one of the toys that she had repaired. Another scene that the sponsor wanted to see was thank you. So in French, merci means thank you. So as you can see, we flew it in the sky here. This is for our other youth. You can see here that we are on the football field that you saw earlier. So this kid wanted to quit school. He wanted to stop going to school. He was just fed up with school. And during the pandemic, he discovered a love of music and got really, really involved with music. And he decided to change his life and go back to school, studying music full time. And this symbol that you see here, if I translate it in English, it means Elliot, you rock. So that was a way of the bank to thank that kid. And of course, if you do a show for a musician, well, at the end of the show, what do? Well, you drop the mic. And that's what we did here.
Yeah, so I'm seeing some people wrote that there is no sound, but I think that's normal if you're sharing a video over Zoom. So, but I think in this video there's still the subtitles as well. So I think we can still enjoy it even if there's no sound for it.
Christophe, I heard you talk during the video. I think you said that the sound was not being played.
Yeah, so like we couldn't really hear the sound coming from the video, but I think that's probably normal over Zoom. At least
Yeah.
I couldn't really figure out like how can you share computer sound as well when you're sharing the screen. So I'm not sure if this is possible.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. A brand new microphone, brand new headphones, and first time doing a webinar. So
yeah, no, I think it's not the problem in the headphones or the mic. It's probably just how Zoom is set up. But anyways, the video had subtitles and all, so I think we could also enjoy it even without the sound.
But the video is public, Patrice, so we can share the link afterwards and everybody can watch it with
absolutely
sound. So
absolutely
great, thanks.
So so we were quite lucky with this show, and this show gave us great exposure. And after this show, our reputation went up in Canada, and we started getting more and more phone calls. And shortly thereafter, about a month after that, we got a call out of the blue from a publicity agency in Toronto. And they told us that they were working on a new product launch for a collaboration between Nike and the singer Drake. And the name of that brand is Forza Nocta, which is a brand of clothing. So the idea of this was to do some guerrilla marketing, go downtown Toronto, because Drake is strongly associated with his hometown of Toronto, and do something in the middle of the night without telling anyone, without any advertisement, and just do it and get out of it. And they were considering multiple options. They were considering doing 3D mapping on famous buildings. They were considering doing a laser light show. They were considering doing a giant spotlights in the sky, like the Batman sign that you can see in the movies. And they were also considering drones. For us, this was a very challenging project because there was only 12 days between the time of the first contact and the drone show. The producer that was involved had limited experience in producing live events. So basically we had to step in and handle every single step of the production, which was a first for us. Usually we're just subcontractors to other people's productions. So let's look at how we executed all that. So our involvement in the project, well, first of all, we had to find a suitable flight location, and finding a place to fly 200 drones in downtown Toronto is not easy. It's actually very, very, very complicated. And we were basically on the verge of giving up. The only suitable places that we could find were public parks, and there was no way that the municipality of Toronto could process all the documentation and issue us a permit to use a public park within 12 days. It just couldn't be done. And on the day that we thought of calling the customer and telling them we're sorry, we cannot do it, it's impossible, my partner Jeff was on LinkedIn, and he was just looking at LinkedIn, and suddenly he saw somebody posting that there was this a place in Toronto called the Harbourfront Center, which is it's a community space where people can rent shops to do sculpture, to do painting, to do things of that nature. And in the back of the center, there is a huge skating rink and a big plaza. And they said on LinkedIn that it was available for rent. So Jeff picked up the phone, called them and said, is it available in 12 days? And the lady said, yes, it's available. So within one day, we rented the place, and finally we had a place to take off. The other challenge that we had was that our location was 800 meters from the end of the runway of Billy Bishop Airport, which is a major airport in Toronto. Our flight path was over Toronto Harbor, which is another whole can of worms that we had to deal with. We had to establish a proper COVID protocol. We had to find a world-class cinematographer to film it. And we had to give the client the shots that he wanted. For Drake, it was really, really important that the show was strongly branded with Toronto. So he wanted to see the CN Tower in the shot, and he wanted to see the Rogers Center in the shot as well. So the permits and the authorization needed for this show were a lot. As I said previously, we needed a special flight operation certificate from Transport Canada. We needed an RPAS flight authorization from NAV Canada because we were obviously flying in controlled airspace, being less than a kilometer away from an international airport. We needed a venue authorization from the Harbourfront Center, which we were renting. We needed no opposition statements from the airport, from the harbor master of the Port of Toronto, from the municipal district councillor, from Toronto Police. We needed a permit from the Toronto Film Office, and Transport Canada also. Transport Canada were very worried about our flight location because we were just a few hundred meters away from CN Tower, and CN Tower has got an extremely powerful transmitter on it. And they were worried that this would interfere with our drone operations. So they asked us to do a test flight as a condition for our permit. As I told you, we had to do that in 12 days only. So to make a long story short, our very last permit was secured at 6 p.m. on the day of the first show. We were just about ready to call it quits, and then our phone ring, and it was the municipality, and it was like, yeah, guys, you're good to go. Here's your permit. And we were able to fly later that evening. So this is very bad for your health when you have to work under such stressful conditions. So as I said earlier, the producers were considering multiple mediums to do this event. They were considering 3D mapping, light projection, lasers, and all this. And what the agency preferred was drones. They thought that this was what would have the most impact. Unfortunately, the client, in this case being Drake, didn't want any drones. As soon as drones were proposed to him, his answer was, nope, I don't want drones. I don't like drones. They don't work well. They're always flying all over the place. I've had them in my world tour and I was not satisfied. So we had to overcome that objection. So we started to do a bit of digging and Googling, and we realized that Drake, his last world tour, he was using indoor drones, but he was using them in giant stadiums. And for those of you that are familiar with indoor drones, they're much smaller, much lighter, and they work well on stage in a smaller venue, but they're quite fragile with wind. And Drake doing huge stadium and some of them with an open roof and things like that, he had problems with the drones. They didn't perform correctly. So we had to overcome these objections. So in the next few slides, I'll show you what we presented to him in order to close the sale. So first of all, we started by talking about the drones that we used. Personally, we're using IFO from UV-Fi. In our presentation to them, we called it the world's most advanced drones, but to be quite honest, any other drone that is recommended from Drone Show Software could have been the world's most advanced drone. This was our sales pitch to the client. So we started to explain a little bit what makes our drone different. We mentioned that they can withstand wind up to 30 kilometers an hour. And I'm sure that Chris Tapps is cringing when I say that, because I'm supposed to say 18 kilometers an hour, but we found tricks to what we do when we fly in high winds is that we make our show bigger. We increase the distance between all the drones to minimize the risk of collisions. So, but don't take my word for it. Don't fly above 18 kilometers an hour. We were explaining to the client that there was a lot of redundancy built in the system, that if one component failed, another component was ready to take over. And we were explaining that we're using outdoor drones and not indoor drones. So we did the comparison here between the drones that we were using and the drones that he had used before that he was not satisfied with. So as you can see, the drone that he was flying in his show weighed 50 grams. So you basically blow on it and it moves, right? And we compared the different technologies and things like that. Sorry for that. Then we showed them pictures of, on the left is the drone that he was using on his world tour. And on the right is the drones that we are using. So showing him that it's much bigger, much more robust, much more adequate to fly outdoors. And at the end of that, well, we promoted a service to them, telling them that we would basically be a one-stop shop and provide everything from start to finish. And with this, we managed to sell the show. And actually, well, all this happened at the same time that Joe Biden got elected president of the United States. And as we were sending all those documents to Drake and his management team, that same night, Joe Biden had his fireworks show and drone show on TV, and it was all over the news. And the following morning, we got a call from the agency telling us that Drake had seen the Joe Biden show, and that had changed his mind. He was all in for the drones, and we signed the contract the following day. So now we had to communicate the idea to all the stakeholders, being Toronto City, the harbor master for Toronto Port, Billy Bishop Airports, the government, the police, the city councillors. We knew that we had very limited time to explain to them what we were doing. So we had to use images as much as possible so that they understood perfectly what we were going to do with this event. So the first thing that we did is that we sent a 3D rendering that you see on your picture to show them exactly what it was going to look like. So obviously that's 1 week before the show. So the drones that you see there are all virtual. That's all software animation on a background of a real picture of Toronto. Then we had to show them what the drones would do. So we animated it, as you can see here, to show them exactly what the drones would be doing. So that helped clear a lot of questions that we had, because with a simple 1-minute video, they could immediately see what the show was all about. After that, we had to show to the client, to Drake, what kind of images he would be getting. So what we did is that we reproduced downtown Toronto on a 3D model, everything up to scale. Then we programmed the show up to scale as well. And then we had a virtual camera fly around to show them the kind of images that it could be getting out of this show. So we flew the camera all over the place because the client was very concerned that we couldn't get the CN Tower and the Rogers Center in the shot, and we wanted to prove to them, no, you will see it. So the CN Tower is right here, as you can see. The egg-shaped object that you see here, that's the Rogers Center. This, for those who are not familiar with the Rogers Center, that's where the baseball team, the Blue Jays, play. So it's a huge stadium. It's one of the biggest stadiums in Canada, and it's a iconic landmark in downtown Toronto. So we moved the camera around a little bit everywhere, higher, lower, try to give them as much as possible a good idea of what our camera work would do. We also sent that video to our aerial cinematographer so he could see what we were expecting in kind of images and positioning, and that helped him prepare his flight plan and apply for his permits, because he knew exactly how we wanted him to fly his drones. This is how we conveyed the idea to the Harbor Center. They were a little bit preoccupied because drone shows are still new. People are not familiar with them. And they were concerned about the kind of footprint that our operation would have on their activities. So we presented to them, distance to all the main roads, distance to the barricade, how the security would be enforced, where we would be flying. And then we presented a similar document to the government for our permit application. So by now you should be familiar with my little drawings showing the geofences and the visual observers and all that. This is a VFR map of where we were flying. So just to give you an idea, I hope that you can see my mouse. Where my mouse is where we were flying. And this here is Billy Bishop Airport. So we're literally at the end of the runway of Billy Bishop Airport. Here you have a helipad. Here you have another helipad, other helipad here, Downsview Airport here, YYZ Airport here, Lester B. Pearson International Airport, another helipad here. I mean, it's just one of the worst places in Canada to do a drone show. And we have been super lucky that everybody cooperated. Because of COVID, Billy Bishop Airport, which was our biggest concern, doesn't fly at night. Because the planes that would fly at night are grounded right now because there's, the volume of air traffic has been cut down. So we're very lucky that Billy Bishop was closed. Those two heliports were 50 meters outside of their control zone. So we got super, super lucky. We were 50 meters outside of where we could not have been able to fly. Many stakeholders ask us to show them a proof that we would not be flying above 400 feet AGL, especially the airports. So we were scratching our head. How do we prove to them that we will not be flying above 400 feet AGL? And we figured that the best way to do that was to show them a picture of our design software showing the altitude. So that's what we did. We circled the highest drone and we showed them that it was at 400 feet AGL. And that convinced them. And then to finish it, we used the Path Viewer application and took screenshots of it to show them the exact flight paths of all the drones. So this is obviously seen from the top. This is seen from the front. This is seen from the side. And just to give you a good idea of how accurate the representation in Path Viewer is, well, look at this. So on the left here, you got an actual long exposure picture of our show. And on the right is the simulation in Path Viewer. So it's absolutely identical. And this is how it turned out. This is a clip that was released on Drake's Instagram 3 days after the show. And up to now, it's got almost 4 million views. So I hope that you can appreciate how the show ended up looking exactly like what we presented. And it's those kinds of things that make producers love us, because they know ahead of time exactly what it's going to look like. We can give them actual camera placement. We're fortunate that we developed a friendship over this year with one of the top aerial cinematographer in Canada. He's worked for Hollywood, he's worked for National Geographic, and since we've been working together for so long now, we can exactly show him renderings like that and tell him exactly the images that we want to get, and he's just awesome at giving us exactly the images that we want. And just before I finish, I just want to mention another challenge that we had to face on both these shows, the Desjardins show and that show, is that winter is breaking now in Canada. And for both these shows, we were flying in around -3 degrees Celsius. So we were obviously concerned about battery life, and we were concerned about the impact on the systems of the drone, right? So what we did is that, yeah, we did test flights to make sure that the drones would perform correctly, that there would not be issue with icing or problem with calibrations. And for the batteries, we had a trailer that we pulled behind one of our trucks that we brought on site, and we installed the heaters in the trailer, and we kept it warm. And that's where we would keep all our batteries. So we put all the batteries in the drone, we program all the drones, then we remove the battery, put them back in on the trailer and charge them. And just 15 minutes before the flight, take all the batteries out, put them in the drone, take off and do the show. So for those of you that live in cold countries, that's something that you might want to keep in mind, battery management during the cold. And our company is presently developing a line of cold weather drone batteries that we will be releasing in a few months as well. So if you want more information, you can get in touch with us and we'll give you more information about it. So thank you. And I will stop sharing my screen now.